Hey man, when a woman first walks away, she doesn't miss you. Not in the way men imagine. She feels relief, even excitement, because in her mind she's free from the weight of the relationship. She convinces herself she made the right choice, that she'll find better, that life will be more exciting without you. In those first weeks, she's not suffering, she's distracted. Nights out with friends, endless scrolling, maybe even new conversations with someone else. She creates noise to convince herself she doesn't care. But here's where most men get it wrong. That noise is temporary, because eventually, the silence creeps in, and it's in that silence, not in the chaos, that she begins to feel your absence. At first, she only notices the surface level absence. You're not texting her good morning anymore. You're not calling to check in. You're not there to hear about her day. But missing you on the surface isn't real. It's habit. It's her brain still wired to routine. What she doesn't expect is how deeply the absence starts to hit when the emotional void becomes undeniable, when the attention she thought was guaranteed is suddenly gone, when the security she took for granted vanishes, when the mirror she used to see herself through, your admiration is no longer reflecting her back. That's when missing you transforms from curiosity into longing. A woman starts missing you for real when she realizes the replacement strategy doesn't work. She might jump into a rebound, convincing herself she's found someone new, but soon she sees the difference. That man doesn't understand her mannerisms like you did, doesn't laugh at her quirks the same way, doesn't carry the same calm energy she once overlooked in you. What felt thrilling at first now feels shallow, and suddenly she begins comparing. Comparison is the enemy of her denial, because the more she compares, the more she remembers what she lost. That's when the nostalgia begins creeping in, slowly rewiring her from "I don't need him" to "no one else feels like him." She also starts missing you when the ordinary moments return to haunt her. It's not the big gestures that replay in her mind, it's the quiet rituals, the way you made her feel safe walking down the street, the way your presence calmed her after a long day, the inside jokes, the lazy afternoons, the little reassurances that no one else notices but her. These are the anchors of intimacy, and once they're gone, she realizes just how irreplaceable they were. A new man can buy her dinner, her friends can fill her weekends, but none of them can replicate the micro moments that made her feel like she belonged with you. That's when the ache of missing you deepens. But the most powerful moment, the one where missing you becomes undeniable, is when she senses your indifference. As long as she thinks you're still waiting, still hoping, still orbiting her, she feels no urgency. But the second she realizes your silence isn't weakness, but strength, that you're no longer seeking her out, that your life has continued without her, that's when panic sets in. Missing you isn't just about wanting your presence back, it's about the shock of recognizing that your presence was never permanent, that she may have lost a man who will never return. And it's in that moment, when she truly sees your absence as final, that she begins to miss you in a way she can't ignore. Once she hits that stage where your absence feels permanent, the missing takes on a new form. It becomes restless. She tries to shake it off by staying busy, but the busier she gets, the more she realizes she's only distracting herself. In quiet moments, lying in bed, waiting for a text that doesn't come, sitting at a coffee shop where you once sat together, she feels the full weight of the void. What used to be her escape, her independence, her freedom, now feels like a prison, because freedom without value becomes emptiness. That's when her missing you turns from passing thought into gnawing hunger. The longer your silence holds, the more her mind replays the timeline. Women are emotional archivists. They store moments in vivid detail. The smell of your cologne, the way you looked at her during a joke, the rhythm of your footsteps coming through the door. She doesn't want to remember these things, but they come uninvited, and the cruel irony is that the more she tries to focus on flaws or reasons she left, the more her mind drags her back to the things she loved. It's not logic pulling her back, it's memory. And memory has a way of romanticizing what once was, painting it brighter and stronger than it felt in the moment. That's when she starts questioning her own choices. She'll never admit it out loud, but another stage of missing you begins when she watches you move on, at least from a distance. She notices when you're not posting sad, bitter updates. She sees when your energy looks calm, centered, detached. Whether she checks your profile, hears about you through mutuals, or just senses the shift in your energy, it stirs something inside her. Regret. Not because you're trying to get her attention, but because you're no longer giving her the oxygen of pursuit. And nothing makes a woman miss a man faster than realizing he has truly chosen peace over her chaos. What makes missing you so intense for her is the contrast between expectation and reality. She expected to move on easily, to replace you quickly, to not feel your absence at all. But the reality is harsher. Every man she meets is either too eager, too boring, too shallow, or too chaotic compared to you. Every conversation lacks the depth she once dismissed, but now craves, and every attempt at filling the void feels like putting a bandage on a wound that keeps reopening. The gap between what she thought would happen and what she actually feels creates cognitive dissonance, and that dissonance amplifies her longing. But the ultimate moment, the breaking point, comes when she realizes she can no longer reach you the way she used to. In the past, she knew a text, a call, a small gesture was all it took to bring you back. But now, when she reaches out and finds you colder, calmer, less available, her world shakes. That's when missing you transforms into fear. Not fear of being alone, but fear of losing the version of herself she only felt when she was with you. And once she realizes that feeling can't be manufactured with anyone else, the missing becomes unbearable. That's when it's real. At this stage, missing you no longer feels like a choice to her. It feels like an addiction withdrawal. When you were present, even in arguments or disagreements, you gave her emotional stimulation, attention, and energy that her nervous system adapted to. Now that it's gone, her body and mind crave it the way a smoker craves nicotine or an addict craves a fix. She tells herself she's fine, but the restless nights, the irritability, the constant scanning of her phone betray the truth. She is not fine. She is unsettled, because the very man she assumed would always be there has become the ghost she can't exorcise. That's when missing you stops being emotional and becomes physical. Her heart races when she sees something that reminds her of you. Her stomach knots when she realizes how much time has passed. Her hands itch to text you even though she swore she wouldn't. And here's the ironic twist. Her missing you grows precisely because you didn't chase her. If you had begged, pleaded, or flooded her inbox, she wouldn't feel this depth of loss. She would feel suffocated, validated in her choice, certain that you still orbit her. But your restraint is what sharpens the ache. Your silence creates a vacuum that her imagination fills with possibilities. Are you seeing someone else? Have you replaced her? Do you even think of her at all? That uncertainty gnaws at her because she cannot control it. And the one thing women secretly fear most is losing control over a man they once owned emotionally. When a woman truly starts missing you, it's not triggered by your presence, it's triggered by your absence, contrasted with her present reality. She notices the men who text her too much, who flatter her endlessly, who chase without her lifting a finger. At first that attention feels good, it strokes her ego, but then it feels cheap, because deep down she remembers that you didn't just give her attention, you gave her respect, you gave her grounding, you gave her a reflection of herself she can't seem to replicate with anyone else, and that realization burns. She begins to miss, not just you, but the version of herself she only found when she was with you. The missing intensifies during transitions in her life, the nights she comes home tired, the moments she faces setbacks, the times she feels vulnerable. These are the spaces where she once leaned on you, even if she didn't say it out loud. Now, with no one to catch her, the emptiness magnifies. It doesn't matter how strong or independent she thought she was. Women crave emotional anchors, and when you withdraw yours, they're forced to face the storm alone. The storm makes her restless, but the calm she once dismissed becomes the one thing she aches for. That's when missing you becomes less about desire and more about survival. Finally, she begins to rewrite history in her own mind. Memory is selective. It doesn't play back the boring arguments or the times you disappointed her. It sharpens the good and blurs the bad. She remembers your loyalty, your care, your patience, and convinces herself she may have exaggerated the flaws. She starts asking, what if I misjudged him? What if I was too quick to leave? What if no one else will ever feel the same? This mental rewriting is dangerous for her because it traps her in a loop of longing that only gets stronger with time, and the more she rewrites the past, the more she misses you, not for who you were, but for who she now believes you to be. As time stretches on, what was once a dull ache of absence transforms into sharp spikes of regret. She starts to see the cracks in the fantasy she tried to replace you with. Maybe she thought another man would give her more excitement, more attention, or more validation, but reality doesn't live up to imagination. That new man, if he exists, isn't you. He doesn't carry himself with your composure. He doesn't match your silence with power. He doesn't make her feel the depth of security you once did. And now, every shortcoming she notices in him becomes a mirror that reflects back the value of what she lost with you. This contrast becomes unbearable because it's not about comparing men, it's about comparing what she feels now versus what she used to feel with you. When a woman truly regrets letting go of a man, her missing him takes on a desperate quality. She'll find small, almost invisible ways to test the waters. Maybe she views your story online, knowing you'll notice. Maybe she likes an old photo, an indirect breadcrumb to see if you'll respond. Maybe she sends a harmless hope you're well message, pretending it's casual, but her fingers hover nervously before pressing send. These aren't random acts, they're strategies to gauge whether the door is still open. The problem is, the more subtle she tries to be, the more obvious her intent becomes. She misses you so deeply that she can't mask it anymore, and the cracks in her composure betray the storm inside. This stage is where your silence becomes a weapon, sharper than any angry words could ever be. Anger gives her closure, it proves she still matters enough to stir you. But silence leaves her drowning in uncertainty. Silence forces her to sit with her own thoughts, her own guilt, her own longing. It's in this silence that she begins to imagine scenarios that never happened. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe you've become better without her. Maybe she'll never get another chance. And the terrifying part for her? She has no evidence to counter those thoughts. Her mind becomes her own worst enemy, replaying the possibility of losing you forever until she can't escape the grip of missing you. Eventually, this silence pulls her deeper into obsession. Missing you stops being about longing. It becomes about identity. She questions her own judgment, wondering why she let go of a man who stood out from the rest. She starts comparing every man she meets to you, and none measure up. She finds herself defending you in conversations, even when no one asked. She replays moments you shared, but this time, she lingers on the details, the sound of your voice, the way you stayed calm under pressure, the way you didn't fold when others would. It's not just nostalgia, it's fixation, and that fixation is the ultimate proof that silence works where words never could. The truth is, when she finally starts missing you for real, it's not because you reminded her, it's because you stopped reminding her. Your absence forces her to confront what she once took for granted. Your detachment makes her realize the difference between attention and presence, between being wanted and being valued, and by the time she fully understands that difference, you've already shifted. You've outgrown the need for her validation. You've built yourself up, stayed grounded, and protected your peace. That's when the dynamic flips forever. She's the one chasing ghosts, and you're the one who finally understands that silence wasn't just a reaction, it was your greatest act of self-respect. When a woman truly begins to miss you, the regret isn't just emotional, it becomes physical. She feels it in her chest, late at night when the world is quiet, when there's no distraction left to drown out her thoughts. She feels it when she's scrolling through her phone and realizes the one person she wants to hear from hasn't reached out. She feels it when she wakes up in the morning and instinctively checks her notifications, only to find nothing from you. That absence starts to eat away at her sense of control. She told herself she was strong, independent, and unbothered, but your silence exposes the cracks in that story. The craving to hear from you grows stronger, not because you're chasing her, but because you've stopped. And here's the paradox. The more you resist contact, the more her imagination fills in the blanks. She starts replaying scenarios in her mind. Did you meet someone else? Did you outgrow her? Did she matter as much to you as she thought? These unanswered questions fuel her anxiety, and suddenly, missing you is no longer a choice, it's a compulsion. Every detail she once overlooked about you becomes magnified. The way you carried yourself, the way you didn't beg, the way you respected yourself. Even when things got hard, those things now shine brighter in her memory than they ever did in real life. This is the price of your silence. She's forced to idealize what she lost. And in that idealization, her missing you becomes unbearable. By this stage, she's not just remembering you, she's rewriting her past with you. That fight she once exaggerated in her head, now she sees her overreaction. The moments she dismissed as boring, now she realizes they were stability, something the chaos of modern dating rarely offers. The quiet dinners, the way you stayed calm when she tried to provoke you, the simple act of showing up consistently, these become treasures in hindsight. And because human psychology often elevates what we lose, she begins to romanticize you more after you're gone than she ever did while you were there. That's the twisted reality. She misses not only you, but also the version of herself she could have been if she hadn't pushed you away. What makes this missing so much more powerful is that it comes without warning. It sneaks up on her when she least expects it, while driving alone, hearing a song that reminds her of you, or catching the faint smell of your cologne on an old sweater. These triggers bypass logic and hit her straight in the emotions, and because women are deeply tied to their emotional worlds, the resurgence of these feelings shakes her more than she'll ever admit. It's not just longing, it's a reminder of how different things felt with you compared to now. And the more she tries to suppress it, the louder it echoes back. By now, she's trapped in a silent battle with herself. On one hand, her pride tells her not to reach out, not to admit weakness, not to confess that she misses you more than she can handle. On the other hand, her emotions scream for relief, for connection, for some sign that the door isn't fully closed. This internal conflict is where missing you becomes almost unbearable, because no matter what she does, she loses. If she reaches out and you remain detached, she feels rejected. If she stays silent, the missing festers and grows stronger, and that's the power of your silence. It places her in a game she can't win, one where her only option is to face the reality of what she lost. Once the missing settles in, it doesn't stay soft, it sharpens. She begins to feel restless, like something essential has been ripped out of her life, and she can't find a way to put it back. Nights become heavier, mornings colder, and even simple routines seem empty because there's a space only you once filled. She may distract herself with friends, work, or even another man, but those distractions fade quickly, and the silence of her own mind brings her back to the same realization. She let go of someone who had a gravity she can't replace. That's when her missing you transforms into a kind of torment, because she can't stop it, and she can't fix it. As her emotions spiral, she starts replaying old conversations in her head, things she said to push you away, dismissive comments she made when she thought she had you forever, little moments where you tried to show her love and she brushed them off. At the time, they didn't seem significant. Now each memory feels like a dagger of regret. It's in these quiet flashbacks that she realizes how careless she was with someone who never demanded more than respect and consistency. The pain of missing you intensifies, not only because you're absent, but because she knows she helped create that absence. Her pride won't allow her to say it out loud, but she starts comparing you to every man who enters her orbit. A casual date, a flirtatious colleague, even a stranger on social media. They all remind her in one way or another that they are not you. The way they talk, the way they react under stress, the way they fail to carry the same quiet strength. You become the measuring stick against which they all fall short. This comparison traps her because she can't unsee it. Every new experience only amplifies her old one, making her miss you more fiercely. And here's the part most men never realize. When she starts missing you at this depth, it's not just about you anymore, it's about her. Missing you forces her to confront who she is without you. She has to sit with her impulsive choices, her illusions, her fantasies, and the sobering truth that she may never get back what she lost. That internal confrontation is brutal because it's not about whether you'll forgive her, it's about whether she can forgive herself. Every day she waits in silence, hoping you'll break yours. She's also battling the guilt that maybe she doesn't deserve your presence anymore. This is when desperation quietly creeps in. She might not send a dramatic message or show up at your door, but her small attempts, liking a photo, asking mutual friends about you, casually slipping your name into conversations, are all silent cries for connection. To the outside world, she still looks composed, still insists she's fine, but inside, she's unraveling. And that's the irony. The more she tries to act like she's over you, the deeper the missing claws at her. Because the truth is, when a man walks away with silence, he doesn't just leave a gap, he leaves an echo. And that echo grows louder the longer you hold your ground. As the echo of your absence grows louder, it begins to seep into every corner of her life. She may be sitting at dinner with friends, smiling, laughing, and playing the part of someone who has moved on, but in the quiet moments between conversations, her mind drifts back to you. When she lays down at night, that's when the silence is most deafening. Her brain begins replaying everything she once overlooked, the tone in your voice when you cared, the calm you carried when life became chaotic, the way you never lost yourself even when she tried to pull you into her storms. That echo isn't just noise, it's a reminder that she is haunted by the stability she once dismissed. Her obsession grows in subtle but undeniable ways. She may check your social media daily, even when she tells herself not to. She notices who you follow, what you post, even what you don't post. Each update becomes a puzzle for her to decode. Does this mean he's happier without me? Has he moved on? Is he trying to send me a message? These thoughts consume her because she has no answers, and the lack of answers is worse than anything else. because her imagination is far more punishing than reality ever could be. That's the brilliance of silence. It forces her to create her own narrative, and that narrative always paints you in stronger colors than you ever painted yourself. Soon, the obsession shifts from curiosity to longing. She starts fantasizing about ways to get you back, even if she doesn't act on them. Maybe she drafts messages she never sends. Maybe she imagines running into you somewhere by accident. Maybe she replays scenarios in her mind of what she'd say if she had just one more chance. And even though she may never admit it, these fantasies become a form of comfort to her. But the comfort is fleeting, because deep down, she knows she's rehearsing for a play that may never be staged. The longer she waits, the more she realizes the role of getting you back isn't hers to decide anymore. This is where fear begins to consume her. Fear that you've truly moved on. Fear that she no longer has a place in your life. Fear that her chance has already slipped through her fingers. That fear cuts deeper than anything else, because it doesn't just highlight the loss of you. It highlights the loss of the woman she thought she was when she had you. She begins to realize she's not the one in control anymore, and for someone who once thrived on testing, poking, and prodding to see if you'd break, this loss of control shakes her to her core. The silence that once seemed like weakness now feels like dominance, and she's left scrambling to find a way back into your world. By this stage, her missing you transforms into a kind of quiet desperation. She may never show it outwardly, because her pride won't allow her to, but inside, she's unraveling. She wonders if you even think of her at all, if you still carry any of the memories she replays daily. And the more she wonders, the more powerless she feels. That's when it finally hits her. The man she thought would always be there, the one she assumed would keep chasing, isn't waiting anymore. And that realization doesn't just make her miss you, it makes her question everything she believed about love, about men, and about herself. When the weight of missing you finally collides with the walls of her pride, something inside her begins to fracture. For so long, she convinced herself that silence was strength, that not reaching out meant she still had control. But over time, the silence becomes unbearable, and it starts to eat away at her self-image. She tells herself she can endure it, but every day that passes without your name lighting up her phone feels like a silent verdict. You're done. That verdict forces her to wrestle with a truth she never prepared for. Maybe she was never as irreplaceable as she thought. That thought doesn't just sting, it destabilizes her entire sense of worth. Her regret deepens when she starts connecting the dots. She remembers moments when you stayed calm while she created storms. She remembers the times you offered stability, and she mistook it for boredom. She replays the day she dismissed your silence as weakness, not realizing it was the very thing that would become her undoing. And now, with each passing week, the memory of how you handled yourself grows heavier in her chest. The more she reflects, the more she understands that she lost, not just a man, but the kind of presence that other men can't replicate. That's when her regret hardens into something much darker: self-blame. Self-blame is a dangerous place for her to be, because it eats at her confidence in ways she doesn't show the world. On the outside, she may still post smiling pictures, pretend to be unbothered, and play the role of the woman who moved on. But internally, she's dismantling her own illusions, asking herself why she let go of a man who never needed to chase her, who never lowered his standards, who never begged. She realizes that in trying to test you, she only ended up testing herself, and she failed. That failure becomes the seed of her torment, because now she knows the difference between men who fold and men who endure, and you fall firmly in the second category. This self-blame often pushes her to the edge of breaking her pride. She drafts texts she never sends, hovers over your name in her contacts, imagines what it would be like to hear your voice one more time. She knows the risk. Reaching out could mean silence in return, and that silence would confirm her worst fear, that you've truly outgrown her. But the pull of missing you is stronger than her pride. She begins rationalizing little excuses to break the silence. Maybe I should just check in. Maybe he'll appreciate the effort. Maybe he's waiting for me to reach out. These justifications are her way of softening the humiliation she feels at the thought of admitting she was wrong. And yet, even if she does reach out, she knows deep down that the dynamic has already shifted. Your silence has turned the tables. Where once she had the comfort of knowing you'd always respond, now she feels the uncertainty of not knowing what you'll do. That uncertainty terrifies her more than rejection ever could, because it reminds her that she no longer has the power. The man she thought she could take for granted has become the man she can't stop thinking about, and the silence she once ignored now haunts her every waking thought. And in that haunting, she realizes the full truth. Missing you isn't just about losing you, it's about losing the version of herself that believed she could walk away without consequence. By the time her emotions spiral this far, obsession has already rooted itself deep within her. What began as occasional thoughts of you has now become a constant involuntary cycle of memories and what-ifs. She finds herself wondering where you are, who you're with, and whether you think of her at all. She may even start checking the places she knows you used to frequent, restaurants, gyms, or even certain corners of social media, just to feel a trace of your presence. It's not about stalking, it's about craving relief from the emptiness your absence has left. And the irony is, the more she searches for signs of you, the more she realizes how invisible you've made yourself. That invisibility gnaws at her, because it makes her feel like she never had the hold on you she thought she did. Her emotional walls, which once stood firm as shields of pride, begin to crumble under the weight of her own longing. At first, she told herself the silence was mutual, that she didn't need you, that she had other options, but those walls weren't built on strength, they were built on denial. Now cracks spread across them, and every crack lets in a flood of truth. She tried to suppress. You were different. You weren't the kind of man who begged, who explained, who gave away his power for temporary comfort, and that realization makes her feel both admiration and despair. Admiration because you stood firm, despair because she finally understands she may have lost someone she'll never encounter again. Her life after you begins to feel hollow, and she can't ignore it anymore. The new man she tried to replace you with feels shallow, the distractions feel empty, and even her own accomplishments lose their shine. It's not that she can't function, it's that she can't feel. The fire she once took for granted in your presence is gone, replaced by a flat, dull ache that no amount of external validation can erase. That's when she begins to compare the life she has now with the life she once had with you. And the contrast is brutal. What once felt normal, your stability, your calm, your silence, now feels extraordinary in hindsight. The longer this continues, the more she begins to rewrite her own story. She may tell her friends she's moved on, but deep inside, she replays every step that led to this point. She analyzes her choices, her words, her behavior, searching for the moment where she crossed the line and lost you. That reflection isn't just painful, it's transformative, because for the first time, she's no longer asking why you left, she's asking why she let herself push you away. That shift of focus marks the deepest stage of regret, where she realizes the problem wasn't what you did or didn't do, it was her inability to recognize the value of what she had before it was gone. And in that recognition lies the cruelest twist. She knows she can't undo the past. Even if she reaches out, even if she admits everything, she understands that you're not the same man who once waited for her attention. Your silence has reshaped you, hardened you, given you clarity. You're no longer the man who seeks validation. You're the man who became stronger because you stopped chasing. And now her missing you isn't just about the absence of love, it's about the absence of power. For the first time, she sees you not as the man who wanted her, but as the man who thrived without her. And that truth cuts deeper than any rejection ever could. By the time she reaches this breaking point, the obsession she feels is no longer a passing emotion. It has become a constant weight pressing down on her daily life. She wakes up thinking about you, she falls asleep thinking about you, and in between, every quiet moment is filled with memories of the man who refused to break. What she once dismissed as indifference, she now sees as strength. What she once mocked as coldness, she now envies as control. And while she puts on a mask for the world, inside she knows she is fighting a battle she can't win. The battle against the silence you never lifted. Her pride, once her shield, becomes her prison. Because now, even if she wants to reach out, she knows she's waited too long. Every day of silence that has passed has built a wall between you and her. And the higher that wall grows, the more she fears the rejection waiting on the other side. She imagines sending that text, but she also imagines your lack of response, or worse, your cold detachment. And that thought terrifies her more than any fight you ever had. Pride told her she could move on. Regret reminds her that moving on without you left her empty. Now she is stuck between the need to act and the fear of failure. This is when the silence shifts from being a tool into being a verdict. At first it was a tactic. You pulled back to protect yourself, to reclaim your peace. But now it has transformed into a final statement, one louder than words. You're no longer available to play her games. And the beauty of this silence is that you didn't have to announce it. You didn't have to explain it. You didn't have to prove anything. She feels it in every corner of her being. The silence has become its own language, one she understands clearly because it is the one thing she cannot manipulate, control, or dismiss. Her downfall begins when she realizes that her longing for you is reshaping her future relationships. Every man she meets is held up against the standard you unknowingly created, and none of them measure up. They're too available, too desperate, too eager to please. They lack the calm strength you embodied, and even if they bring her temporary excitement, the comparison lingers. You have become the ghost she cannot escape, the silent reminder that not every man bends to her whims, and that ghost haunts her, not because of what you did, but because of what you refused to do. Chase her after she left, and this is where your silence transforms into a permanent victory. Not because you won her back, not because she finally admitted her mistakes, but because you grew into a man who no longer needed either. You discovered the power of walking away, of holding your ground, of choosing peace over chaos, and in doing so, you left her with something she'll never shake, the memory of the man who gave her nothing, and yet left her with everything to think about, while she lives in the torment of what if. You live in the freedom of what's next, and that is the difference between her pain and your power.